My space, your space, your space, my space, our space. OneSpaceLove, OneSpaceLove, OneSpaceLove.
Celebrate how important music is, and how important and how many people are being affected by one decision.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Anyway. It's been the flow-on effects have been huge for this festival. It brought a lot of hope to so many people in the industry, being one of Australia's most iconic, and it's pretty devastating.
So devastating. And I've been seeing I'm good friends with Lou that works with Support Act, and she brought my attention to you guys. And so I was on your Instagram and looking at this morning, like before I even really woke up, and looking at how much you've been speaking up. And I really honor you for being a voice of change, because, it's really brave of you to speak up like that. So I'm going to hand it over to you, and then I want to get excited about what you're creating as well. But let's go and how you're feeling about this decision, and that's been made so suddenly with only 1 day's notice, and how many people it's affecting. Yeah.
It's a pretty hypocritical decision in a lot of ways, I think. So many other events have been allowed to go ahead in more dire situations. And for there just to be no negotiation, it was so sudden. It seems really unfair on the Bluesfest organisers and on the community around that. Not only the local people who are expecting an influx of income, but for the artists involved, for sound and lighting engineers who brought gear, booked accommodation, for all people who set up the festival, all the stall holders who bought food to supply, Projects just supply 15,000 people with food. It's like, how do you sell that when you're not at an event like that?
And the event planners put so much effort into making such a detailed COVID-safe plan to keep everyone safe. Everyone was going to be seated and social distance. There were going to be COVID marshals enforcing the rules. I'm sure they would have made everyone wear masks because of the concern at the time.
COVID case that was around.
Yeah. And I think it was a bit of an overreaction, honestly, to cancel it. And I understand they're trying to keep everyone safe, but cancelling Bluesfest and then the next day saying the Royal Easter show is going ahead, which is going to have more people and very similar activities and people being in close quarters and stuff. I think it was,
and I think it shows a lot of lack of even considering whether the festival can go ahead, or even really knowing what it was all about. We had comments from Gladys saying, it's different to the Easter show because there'll be dancing and music, and it's just like, have you even looked at the festival? That there was no dance, there wasn't going to be any dancing. So it seems like they've made an assumption and very brash decision without actually considering the impact and what was even happening at the festival. It shows a real lack of
naivety,
lack of consideration and naivety, and just disregard for the arts. We've seen that over and over again in so many different fields, defunding the arts in schools and universities, allowing, just regular people to play contact sports in New South Wales from the 1st of July in 2020, when there were still, heaps more cases than there are in Byron Bay right now. I don't understand why you can allow people to go ahead and play contact sports and go, but live music venues can't open up. And, this festival has to be cancelled. It's really a double standard. And that's what we're angry about. It's not the fact that, a call had to be made. It's the fact that, different criteria are being given to arts events and arts just in general than other industries.
What were you going to say?
I was just, with the sports thing, I don't think it's just the people playing the sports. The big concern is people spectating in stadiums. Stadiums hold tens of thousands of people, and it showed proof in what happened with Italy, with all the soccer games being the super spreaders, and why the outbreak got so bad, with everyone hugging and when their team scored and celebrating and people yelling and stuff. It's like they're allowing sports events to go ahead that were proven to be super spreaders, and then saying, but music festivals can't, even though they'd probably be more COVID safe in the end.
specifically Bluesfest. Like they put a year of planning into this, and what's the point of having a COVID safe plan if one COVID case comes up? By the way, there've been for the last couple of days 0 community transmissions.
It's very interesting, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's very interesting that why is this industry being targeted? And I think it's such a quick decision to make, right, we're cancelling it. When we know that these, I know personally that these were all in place, from being, part of the event that they were all in place. They've spent so long making all these, decisions of how to make it safe, and to just not consider how are we going to close it, not closing it down, but how can we consider even putting in more restrictions, but at least letting the doors open.
It's
frustrating because I know.
Surely there was a way to go ahead that could have kept everybody safe and allowed, the festival to go ahead, and for, all of the people who've put up capital to be able to be there and to organize it. One of the industry professionals estimated a $10 million loss. Like, how do you recover from that? I don't know.
Let's talk about that because I am personally friends with a lot of artists that are being affected. Not only artists, lighting, sound, promoters, all of this industry is really being hit hard, and it's been more than 12 months now. What are you doing to find hope in the situation? Because there isn't much, anyone that's paid for accommodation and transport and brought in their sound crew, there's no security blanket to fall back on now. That money's all gone. So where do we find hope? Or where are you personally finding hope?
For bands especially, I think it's really tough. Like, I work as a solo artist for a living, and a lot of the just paying the bill stuff comes from covers gigs. We've been really lucky in Queensland for the fact that I've been able to, start those up. I, sort of started booking those gigs again in September, and I was really lucky that I was, able to get onto JobKeeper. So that was a real lifeline for me personally. But that's being taken away pretty soon, even though, we're still actually not able to continue business as we usually would. So I think that government support needs to continue. But in terms of bands, I think the real hope is actually just placed in the general public and in audiences and people who are willing to support the arts, people who actually, most everyone consumes arts every day. If you ever listen to music on your phone, if you watch TV, there's background music in every TV show.
You have a painting on your wall.
All of these things. And so I guess the hope comes from, placing faith in the fact that people are going to keep buying from artists and supporting local musicians, supporting, any arts industry. It's not just music that's suffering. And all of the people who come along with those industries. So, feeling a little bit pessimistic about the government support and just support from, the people who should be using taxpayer money to look after anyone who's been hardest hit. There are a lot of industries that have been hard hit. So I think it's really silly that JobKeeper is being ended so early when we definitely haven't been able to get back to normal business.
Yeah.
But particularly the arts, I think there needs to be a specific arts industry fund and support. I know there's been a lot of talk of an insurance scheme similar to the one that's been applied to the movie industry, where if business has to be put on hold or postponed, there's just an insurance scheme to help cover those costs and help recover from these events. Like, if things do need to be cancelled, so be it. But there has to be support. There has to be something to fall back on, and we don't have that at the moment, and that has to change. That's what I'm hoping for out of all of this. We've gotten a lot of media attention, surprisingly. I don't know why. I just posted a bit of an angry Facebook post, I think this is really
just
unfair.
after we got the call, actually, because we were driving to the Bluesfest busking comp finals. We were on the M1.
Yes.
And we got the call, and Ella just went, I'm going to post about this. And we did, and we everyone talked about it at the event. Everyone was really disappointed at the final, but everyone still had a good time, made the most of it. And
then we woke up the next morning and we were like,
on the news.
Where are the news? How did that happen? Yeah, anyway. But what we really want to do is make something positive out of this, try and get the government's attention. I've tried to tag the New South Wales government and Gladys in the posts that we've been making to get their attention. And I think they really need to listen to the people who are being affected by this. Not only us, but there are so many artists posting and speaking up, and industry professionals putting forward plans and suggestions, and they're willing to come to the table and negotiate some kind of system that helps the arts industry recover from these situations. And the government needs to take that seriously.
And you called her out on one of your posts that you wrote with the Easter show in comparison to Bluesfest being cancelled. And you really you're very clear on all your points of what you said. Like, come on, look at what you're actually saying. And it was fantastic. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, she did. She actually defended the decision with incorrect information. I was like, no, if you're going to publicly cancel something that affects so many people, you at least need to be honest with why and what's happening. And if you actually don't know what you're talking about, then don't make the decision until you do. Don't make a call that affects so many people unless you actually fully understand the situation. I think that's the responsibility of politicians and people who are in charge of so many people's livelihoods, because really that's what it is. It's people making a living and people just trying to survive in the industry that they're in. And, you're the government. You're meant to be representing those people and supporting them. You work for the public as a politician. So, yeah, it's your job to be informed and to understand what your decisions impact.
Yeah.
So,
And so
again, I just really hope that she can learn from that and then try and work with the arts industry to come up with a better solution. I don't want to just hate on her. I think, she's probably under a lot of pressure, and it's a huge responsibility and unprecedented thing with COVID. We've never had a situation like this before, and I'm sure she's doing her best, but I think that was really, poorly spoken when she said that.
No, I mean, anger isn't the way to get through this, but it's bringing attention and bringing light to the situation and understanding, because I think people can see the news and go, oh, Bluesfest is cancelled. Oh, okay. But they don't actually understand the impact of how many people that's affected, and just to bring that awareness to people so that they can take time to understand how much this industry is being affected, and that it's time we pay attention to that and find how the government can support that. Yeah. So you were on your way to the Bluesfest busking finalists. So you were in that event. You were one of the finals.
Yeah, one of the finalists out of 6 amazing artists. Yeah, which was such a privilege to be chosen for that. We were going to play at Bluesfest along with the other 5 finalists. Bronte Eve took out first place as the winner of the competition, which, must have been so exciting. But, even as we were doing the finals, we knew that Bluesfest wasn't going ahead. And I'm glad that the competition did. We sort of were joking that, we are Bluesfest now. This is the only part of Bluesfest that's still happening.
I mean, how brilliant that still went ahead. I'm really pleased that you got to experience that. Yeah.
Absolutely. And there was a Bluesfest busking showcase at the Beach Hotel yesterday as well that we went and supported and listened to. There was a lineup of some amazing artists that have previously been in the competition, some of which were also booked to play at Bluesfest. So
excuse my naivety, but how did those events go ahead? What was the crowds like, and was there social distancing? And
so everyone walking around who weren't seated had to wear a mask
unless they were eating or drinking.
You weren't allowed into. So it was at the Beach Hotel in Byron Bay. You weren't allowed in unless you were wearing a mask. You had to check in, on the New South Wales government website, and you weren't allowed to stand and dance. Or you were only allowed to stand up if you were walking somewhere else,
to the toilet or whatever. They had an app set up where you could order online, so the waiters brought the food to your table and the drinks, so you didn't have to get up. A lot of effort.
And there were security guards walking around and enforcing all the rules the entire day. So
it was really socially distanced. I mean, the Beach Hotel is where one of the transmissions or the cases were as well.
And actually, the one of the days of the semi-finals events that happened after we found out that transmission, they delayed the semi-finals event and did a deep clean of the whole hotel and made sure everything was sanitized.
So everyone in the industry is really willing to take precautions and be respectful of that. And I think that Yeah, I think that's really great. Like, we need to be taking those precautions. It's a really serious situation. And it was fantastic that, we actually, people in Byron Bay who had maybe travelled for the festival could have been there to actually see some live music and at least get something out of the trips made. Because that's the other thing. So many patrons.
I was going to say, I also feel for all the patrons and all the families that were excited about seeing live music and all their plans, all the money that they've put into a family holiday or a holiday to go and watch live music. Yeah, there's a lot of people affected. Absolutely. Yeah.
Something else I just want to point out as well, and this is another thing that I think has been maybe overlooked by a lot of people making decisions like cancelling Bluesfest and, not sports events. I've seen so much footage of stadiums recently within these COVID times and where there's no social distancing being enforced. Our drummer was at the Broncos football game just a couple of days before Bluesfest in Brisbane. And he said, he went in there wearing a mask, trying to social distance. He was there with a family member. And they just said that it was shocking how little was being enforced. Everyone was standing right up against each other. Strangers were drinking beers and rubbing up against each other in the audiences. None of the seating was spaced out. They had a couple of things like drawn on the floor in the bathrooms, like enter here and exit here. And no one was respecting it. Everyone was just mingling. And then, of course, when people celebrate and they leave the stadium and they're all drunk, they hug each other and they're walking along the streets. And, even just being outside a stadium when everyone's exiting, it's hard to keep your distance because there's nothing being enforced. And that's not unique to that game. That's, pretty much every sports game we've seen around. There's been a real disregard for respecting the rules.
Yeah, then go ahead.
Well, they've let them go ahead and they haven't, really made a huge effort to social distance everybody. And every single gig that we've played, every single arts event that we've attended, we see so much effort going into trying to make these events safe. And, after seeing that, I just, to have
really
a politician stand up and go, oh, it's not safe because they'll be dancing and hugging. And it's like, well,
that's
have you actually looked at what's happening in reality? Why are you not applying that logic to sports games? Like, where's... And, I don't think it's because they're trying to, disrespect the arts, but I really just think it's a lack of understanding. And, a lot of assumptions made. If you're not someone who regularly goes out to live music or has been to live music events during COVID, maybe you don't know. But again, it's your job as a politician and a decision maker to actually do that research and understand what you're impacting.
And to understand the industry that you're impacting. Yeah. All the facets of the industry. It's not just the musicians on a microphone. It's all the behind the scenes as well. Yeah.
So many different, the arts industry, there's a little statistic for you, employs 4 times more people than the coal mining industry. And yet we have so many government subsidies going to fossil fuels and, barely anything going towards subsidizing the arts industry. And it's an industry 4 times the size. Like, it employs more Australians, it brings in more money. A huge portion of our GDP is actually made up by the arts. I don't know if this is accurate anymore, but it was either 2016 or 17, the arts made up it was a huge percentage. It was over 10% of our GDP. And it was the largest portion of our GDP out of any single industry, the arts and everyone involved. And, that needs to be respected and valued and given some support. There are so many people's jobs and livelihoods riding on supporting this industry.
And talking about the mental health now, you're putting, what gave you this drive to put together this compilation? And I mean, that takes, again, a lot of work, and you're going to give all the proceeds to Support Act. Can we mention that? Yeah.
So we just, when we got all the unexpected media attention, we were like, oh my God, we're a pretty new band. We almost feel like we didn't deserve all of that attention compared to so many of the artists who've been around long term. And we were just
have been speaking up about this as
well. Yes. And people who have been really negatively impacted, artists who've traveled from interstate. And, we just really wanted to not be the center of attention, but to give voice to, everyone who is suffering. And so Support Act are an amazing non-for-profit that provide crisis aid to people in the music industry and people in related industries as well. So, roadies,
all of those different roles.
You can apply for aid on their website. And we just thought, man, like, you know, if the government's not going to support artists, this organisation is doing it, and we need to do something about this situation.
So we reached out to a bunch of musicians, everyone on the Bluesfest lineup, and who are involved in the busking comp, to donate, I guess, a song to this compilation album. That all the proceeds bought within a period of time will go towards Support Act from that song that everyone chose.
So yeah, everyone uploads a song to the album, basically, who's willing to do that, and they're taking no profits at all from it. We're just all going to donate 100% of the money to Support Act and try and, you know, do something that just helps the music industry. Like, the whole music industry has been suffering, all of the arts have been suffering. So yeah, like and we're hoping that the media doesn't just drop this story now that, you know, it's not we sort of got picked up because I used really strong language in that initial post. Like, it's disgusting that this got canned next to the sporting events, and they
used to show. Yep.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I really hope that they can then back actually doing something for the music industry that's been affected by this, and, you know, hopefully we can get lots of people to pitch in and buy a song, you know,
buy the full album.
Yeah. We're still, the songs will be about $2 each. We're still gathering all the artists. We don't know exactly how many people are going to be donating a song yet, so the price will be determined soon for that. And yeah, we're going to launch the album on the 5th of April. And yeah, it'll be on Bandcamp, and it'll be up until about the 7th of May, because on the 7th of May, Bandcamp waive all of their fees so that 100% of the profits go to the sellers of the thing. And so that means that 100% of the profits on that day will go to Support Act rather than Bandcamp taking a cut. And Bandcamp are great. They actually take pretty much the smallest cut out of any distributor in the music industry. So that's why we decided to use them as well. They're really for supporting artists.
Yeah, they are. Yep.
Yeah, and hopefully we can just raise some money to really support those in need.
Well, this gives me hope, and that's why I love Silver Lining. It's brought you, you know, together, and now you're doing something to make a difference, and that's what I love. You know, we look at these situations and we think, what can give us hope out of this to keep being creative and to keep making music and keep our spirits believing that this industry can continue to have a place.
Last night I didn't sleep in my own bed. I wanted to be somewhere else instead. I didn't want to think, so I bought another drink.
Welcome, Danielle Champagne, to the OneSpaceLove show. Thank you for chatting with me today. How are you going?
Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
Really good. Really good.
So with the latest news of Bluesfest closing down, how are you feeling at the moment in yourself as an artist and as an industry as a whole?
I think for me, I'm mostly feeling for the other people, particularly the promoters and everyone who worked to put the festival together, because I know for me it was another gig on a tour that I've been lucky enough to get out and play again. But I know for those people working on it, it was not only 1 year of working on it now, but 2 years of working on it just to have it fall through at the last minute. And no, it must have been hard to take. I don't know where they're going to go from here. But yeah, it's very, very sad to see because I really did think it was going to happen and it was going to be a amazing thing for Australian music and starting to put, you know, larger scale performances back on the map, I guess.
And bringing almost the Australian music industry, a lot of you were coming together in that one space this weekend. And so that in itself would have been an experience you'd all been looking forward to, you know, collaborating on stages and being back, you know, together again. Yeah.
Yeah, just seeing friends that I hadn't seen for years in some cases. And I think being a part of a pretty cool thing for Australian music. I mean, obviously it's a shame we wouldn't have been able to have overseas acts, but in the same way it was cool that they got all these extra acts that maybe wouldn't have usually played, and it was going to be a pretty special lineup. Yeah, I was really looking forward to doing it, and very sad to not be there at the moment. I guess I was playing on the Sunday, Monday, so right now I probably would have been getting ready to play. So it's a little bit sad to be down here in Tasmania in a way.
And so had you made it already to Byron?
No, because I was playing the Sunday, Monday, I dropped in and visited my family who are on the south of New South Wales near Bega. So I was kind of just going to shoot up Friday night and Saturday and stay Saturday night, see some friends, check out some bands, and then play the Sunday, Monday, and then fly to Tasmania. But obviously I didn't want to go to Brisbane because of the situation and maybe not getting into Western Australia. And I just kind of turned the van around and headed to Melbourne and just caught the boat across to Tassie and just got in this morning.
Yeah, I loved that you when you messaged and said, I'm actually going to get in the van and drive to Melbourne. I loved that. So that must have been a very spontaneous, almost silver lining to the whole situation, that you got to have that little road trip down and boat ride to Tasmania where you got some gigs lined up. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's something I've kind of been trying to do through this whole COVID thing. Like, obviously there's going to be things that will suck and won't be able to happen. But I guess out of all of them, just look for something positive that you might be able to do that you wouldn't have been able to do otherwise. So I think for me personally, like, I've been one of the luckier artists because I am solo and because it is still worthwhile for me to play to smaller audiences. I've been able to start getting out on the road pretty early and play shows that are sometimes shut down last minute, but sometimes they go ahead. So pretty thankful for that.
And so where do you draw your, because you sound like you've got a really good way of adapting to these new ways of being an artist in this particular time. What are you feeling, where do you draw your hope from that gives you that ability to have that positive outlook?
I think you kind of just have to, in a way. Like, there's no point getting too negative about it. And I think that it is, I mean, there's setbacks such as Bluesfest being cancelled, but I think in general it is slowly starting to open up and get a little bit better slowly. So I think that there's proof that things will get better, and you've just got to keep working hard and holding on to hope and doing whatever you can do at the time. And hopefully in the future we get, back to something like normal.
We don't know. I think it's a new normal now, isn't it? As long as you it sounds like you love what you do. And I mean, I'd love to have a whole chat with you, but it sounds like you're doing what you love and you're going to continue to do what you love, whatever form that takes now.
Yeah. And I think obviously you've got to set your goals a bit differently. So I guess before the lockdown, you were hoping to play shows to larger audiences or X amount of people, and it's just not possible at the time. So I think for me, just being able to feel lucky to go out and play to anyone, even if it's 30 people, it is a pretty cool thing for me. And I'm particularly lucky because for the past 6 years before the lockdown, I was living in America. I was living in Nashville, and I was touring over there kind of just as it happened. I finished the tour and came back to Australia. And so almost every day I speak to friends in Canada or in Europe or in America who are still in that, locked in their house situation. They get fined if their car's in a different suburb sort of thing. So I think in Australia, even though there'll be things that suck, we are very lucky. And to be able to get out on the road in any capacity and play any type of show is a pretty promising time for us.
Yeah. I mean, I think that you just really put it in perspective, that how lucky you are that you got over to here and that you can tour regionally and be free to get in the van and tour. That is gratitude to that. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I think when it all shut down, because I played a lot of shows and I think there were like 147 concerts on sale. And obviously all the international stuff just that kind of got wiped out, but all the Australian and New Zealand shows we've kind of postponed and then postponed and postponed again. And since September, when I started getting out and playing gigs, I've been able to play almost 70 shows. So it is nice to eventually get out and see the people that have been supporting and sort of holding on to their bit of hope too, and slowly ticking them off. And finally in Tasmania and West Australia next week, and then up to Queensland, and hopefully, you just kind of hope it all goes ahead. And when it does, you feel very fortunate.
Oh, I'm so happy for you. Thank you so much for sharing, and I'll share a link to all the gigs you've got coming up for the listeners. And thank you for taking time to chat today on the OneSpaceLove show.
Thanks for giving me the time.
Yeah.
Hi, this is Daniel Champagne, and you're listening to the OneSpaceLove show.
Heard you finally left your hometown. Figured things would end like that. Guess you took.
Everyone, I'm sure, has had the same reaction as me, but just prepped to go and play at the festival, and all the work that you mentally and musically just prep yourself to perform at a festival like that. You just it's a build up emotionally, so I too am madly disappointed in the whole sort of, it's just a big letdown, really, isn't it? Yeah, I mean, just the fact that was like one of the times when music was going to sort of like almost mark a time when music's coming back. Festivals are able to recommence, and people are able to still with social distancing in place, but able to go and experience live music. And not only that, just Australian live music. It was just the perfect setting, almost, just for saying, well, we're locked in here, this is how we this is what Australia can do when we're just up to our own sort of border limitations. And it was a pretty awesome lineup, and I was looking forward to just catching up with everyone, probably mainly just to just give everyone a bit of a long distance hug and just hear stories. And everyone's been through this thing together, so it's just it's a historically a time in our lives that probably we'll never see again, hopefully. But it's an emotional time for everyone.
I mean, talking about the gathering of the Australian music community, this has been coming up a lot, that this was what most of the artists were very much looking forward to, and collaborating with different artists on that stage, and a lot of preparation went into that.
Exactly. I mean, I was booked to perform solo, gratefully, and I was a bit of a last-minute addition to the festival, so I had plans in place to get some of my best mates up to play. I had Charles, also known as Bobby Alou, to come and play drums on about 4 tracks of mine, and Rowan, my long-time buddy, bass player. We've been playing together for 15 years, and no, longer. Probably like 30 years. Anyway, he was going to be up there and sit in the bass on some of my songs, and also Ray Beadle. And, that's the beauty about that festival too. It just has a lot of, your friends are going to be there, and how much fun it is to bring some friends up and just collaborate live on stage and just be spontaneous like that. So
And
I'm optimistic though.
Yeah, tell me, how is your attitude now? Like, what are you feeling about everything?
Yeah, I mean, in the name of health and whatever, yeah, that had to happen. But and much to everyone's disappointment, it's something that just was, put towards us by the government, and that's, they have the last say, I guess, in situations like that. And so I'm hoping that they get behind the festival, also just to make sure if the festival does go ahead at a later date, that will never happen again for them. And, it's partially, the pandemic, whatever it is, it's circling around still, and it's still, in our lives. But, it quite easily it could have just been handled a lot better, testings, maybe let still just screening the borders of people coming in internationally, and making sure that just doesn't ever put anyone's, lives at risk. And also just a situation like the Bluesfest, where it's the day before and, 16,000 people plus are about to descend on to having a magical time together. And then all the people that, it's a big ecosystem of, people that are displaced by this whole thing. So I hope the government get behind the Bluesfest, because there's a lot of money outlaid just to get it up to that point. And then, the people that have bought tickets, some of them are going to want that money back because they probably can't make a later date, or, there's just 1,000 scenarios that have happened from this. And I won't go into any of them, but at a later date, I hope the current government, which don't have a good track record with, getting behind the arts in a way that isn't sort of seen as highbrow arts, I'd like to see them just really stand up and just, treat, music and contemporary music with as much revere as the sports, cricket, tennis, they bend over backwards, I'd say, to get an event like the Australian Tennis Open to go ahead, but as far as like music and festivals, they're just really quick to just not see it as a cultural, culturally important to, try and make it work. So yeah, I'm optimistic it's going to go ahead again. But in order for the festival to recoup, the government's got to financially step up and make sure that, they recover their losses and, maintain being one of the great festivals. And, I take my hat off to Peter Nobel for, just getting behind Australian music for one, and just having, the tenaciousness to go ahead and, want to do a festival and support live music and Australian music at that. So, yeah, I think it's going to go ahead. Positive.
Welcome, Nicky Bomba, to the OneSpaceLove show. How are you?
Thanks for inviting. A beautiful thing.
So where were you? Had you head up to Byron when you found out that it was cancelled last minute?
Well, look, it was actually, we had plan A, plan B, plan C, plan D, all kind of things happening because I was driving up and I was hanging in the Central Coast, and I was supposed to drive up on the Wednesday, but we already had a couple of people that had flown up already, but the main thrust of the band, 13 or 14 members, were still in Melbourne, waiting to come up. But our thing was, when you play Bluesfest, you fly into Coolangatta, which is Brisbane. So the following week, we're playing in WA.
Yes.
So we couldn't play in WA if we flew into Brisbane. Right. So the first thing we did was change those flights to fly into Ballina, except there wasn't any flights flying into Ballina. So we had to, the idea was to fly into Newcastle, get 2 high cars and drive the 5-6 hours up to Byron Bay. Right. So that was plan A, or plan B, I should say. Then there was it got declared an orange zone. So we gave the people the option in Melbourne saying, look, it's an orange zone. It means that when you have to come back, you have to isolate and, until you get the test and everything. But there's the possibility that it become a red zone. And there was 5 or 6 people that couldn't take that risk. So they had to drop out. So we had to have replacements for those.
Whoa.
Which we had in plan. And also a contingency program to get out of Byron in case it became a red zone, so we could still do the WA gigs. Because if that became a red zone, then WA would say, well, you couldn't have been a Byron. So it was about just creating a situation where we didn't hit the Byron Shire until the very last minute. But around 3:30 on Wednesday, I had to make the call. Because flights there's only 1 more hour and we were going to lose the flights that were held. There was an extra 5, 6 or 6 grand that we had to pay the flights. And if we didn't do that, so thankfully at 3:45 or something, when I was in that hour, I had to make the decision. The announcement was made that it wasn't on, and so we had lots of things planned too. We were doing a special spot with Joe Camilleri. We were going to do Shape I'm In with him. We were going to do a Toots and a Maytail special with all the exes, Natalie Rose, Danielle, Mum Kin, and all the other girls actually in the band doing this whole sort of singing thing. So we've done a lot of preparation for it and worked out a really tight show, down to what we were going to say, and so we could get as many songs in.
Yeah.
So. Yeah, but that's kind of it's a cliche, but that's rock and roll. It really is. You have to kind of go with the flow, and things change. Sometimes we've gone to places where there's been 2 delays and we've missed the show, or because of flights and everything. So this kind of thing happens, but not on this big scale. It was a pretty kind of major kind of setback.
Yeah, on this scale, and when so many, they had so much in place prepared from already what happened last year, it is definitely a big. And
I know the Bluesfest organisers quite well, and I know how much work they went into to follow all protocol. To make sure the social distancing was there. It was half the attendance, but still big enough to put on a festival. And there was all these little minor protocols that had to be, taken care of, which they did, and followed suit. So, my heart goes out to them because I don't think they had insurance this year. Last year they did. And from a musician's perspective too, I'm still kind of, I suppose, annoyed at the government structures that they really haven't, allowed or considered, the plight of the entertainment industry, especially the music industry, because it is our bread and butter. Playing live is the bread and butter. So a lot of the time when you're putting on gigs, the capacity is half. So you're not even actually making enough money to do a gig. It might just be break even, you know, but you still kind of have to do it and hopefully make a bit extra with selling merch and that type of thing. So, and then there's, you know, all these grants and everything that they said, you know, I've applied for 10 or 15 grants and haven't got one. They've just,
Really?
they just kind of not all wrote letters saying, yeah, you know, sorry, there was your applicant wasn't successful, you know, or your application wasn't successful. So I just went. There was one small one I got for but it was more to do with the bushfire thing where I live. So it wasn't, you know, nothing substantial that would actually, you know. And now the JobKeeper's stopped. You know, I don't know what the state of play is going to be for the next couple of months. Yeah, I mean, there was a picture in the paper this morning that's like. The beach hotel, which was, you know, closed down for a couple of days, was now jam-packed today. And, you know, Bluesfest kind of didn't go ahead. People were just as much in proximity, you know, there as they would have been at the festival. So, and, you know, and being a musician, is you run your own business. You know, it's not like, you know, you get any kind of handouts or anything. So it's kind of, that's difficult enough to kind of making things work. And so so, I mean, you know, on a personal level, I mean, I kind of just have to rethink how I'm going to make my bread and butter, you know, and it might be just doing a lot more smaller gigs for a lot less money, but just having to do a lot more of them. Because I honestly thought that there'd be some kind of compensation, some kind of grants or some kind of something to kind of go, you know, but you know, and a lot of my friends who have applied for the same grants haven't received them as well. So, you know, I'm not about to kind of bring them up and go, well, where's all this money going to? You know, and who are the actual assessors that are actually assessing it, and what is, you know, because sometimes they just, you know, just employ anybody to do, you know. So, so I'm curious as to why, you know, for all the political kind of grandstanding about making so much money available, it doesn't seem to be filtering through.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so was the tour at a standstill now as far as going to WA? Has that all been cancelled as well?
No. We're actually, look, the thing is with Bluesfest is that because it's a festival, the outgoing, the only real spend is flights, really, because all of the advertising and everything is already done. However, with WA, it's our own gig, so we've paid for publicity, for posters, for ground transport, flights, accommodation, putting on the gig, PA hire, or whatever type of thing. So if I said no to that now, I'd be, you know, $6-7 grand in you know, and I can't afford to do that. So we have to kind of, and it was at the point where we had to make the decision of WA or Bluesfest, you know, and so, and that was kind of what my call was, and that at 3:30 I just had to make the call, you know, and people were dropping out of the Bluesfest thing because it was like, you know, you could kind of see that the government was kind of gearing towards. They were, you know, calling it a super spreader event, and, you know, and so we were replacing musicians. Thankfully, we got like lots of people on our books, you know, and grabbing people from local. Like when we do WA, we to compensate to make that we're getting about 6 or 7 musicians from there.
Okay.
To save on flights and, you know, and we've also managed to get another little gig with a smaller version, the Bustamento band, which is members that are in the orchestra. Yeah. So you kind of just got to make it. But after that, you know, I'm planning a solo tour. I've got a new album coming out, a new single coming out, and I put a little band together. And we've got every weekend in May completely booked for a national tour. But that could just at the drop of a hat, exactly. So you know, and I kind of just think that like where the compensation should come in is like, here is a fixed tour. Here's a fixed amount that we were going to get, and we have lost that money, and we've actually inherited a loss. So at least for that to be compensated, or at least for like some, you know, that type of thing, and just kind of to have. I mean, I suppose I know all businesses maybe kind of I don't know really what is happening with the other industries, but I just know that the music industry is just really one of the last, and because it's all about people being in the space, it's going to be a difficult thing to yeah. So I don't know. I might just start landscape gardening or become a baker. Something.
Something.
We always need bread, right?
Yeah. Have you got into baking during this last year?
What I got into, I mean, I had a fairly, because we were on tour with the orchestra last year at this time last year, where we had to stop the tour dead, and again we'd spent a lot of money with so much advertising and everything. I lost about 10 or 15 grand in that when that stopped, and again not really being compensated. So I knew that things kind of completely changed. JobKeeper helped, definitely. My father was quite ill and actually passed away in that time. So so there was a time where I was able to sit, the whole family was able to sit with him for 5 weeks and actually take care of him and not have him in the hospital system. And we took care of that. And so that was kind of quite beautiful in many ways. And, we were all like, there's mum and dad and 6 kids. And the first time in 42 years that we're actually in the same house together. And so it was beautiful. The dynamics were amazing. And it was, it was a real testimony to the closeness of the family that him and mum created. It was gorgeous in many ways. So that took that was like 2 months of and the rest of the time I was just writing from the new album. I just kind of went, okay, well, this is the time to kind of get down and just whatever little gigs I could pick up. But there was nothing. There was like hardly anything. Tried to do some recording and did some things like web stuff. And I learned how to kind of use. I did a little television show type of thing, just try pilot for a TV show, just to, just kind of just thought use it as a time for learning. And I managed to finish a solo album, which was great because it allowed me the time to kind of do that. Otherwise it would have just taken a bit longer. But yeah, so the time was at least utilised because for me time is gold. It's precious. I try to every hour of the day is gold for me. So and even I have to. I feel guilty about just chilling sometimes, but I have to say it's okay to, it's okay to chill. It's okay just to be in that zone. And but now it seems like, I just have to try things on, and if they fall by the wayside, because the JobKeeper is going to stop. So there is no lifeline anymore, and I think I don't even know what the other options are now.
I think the uncertainty has become even more unknown, hasn't it?
Totally, and I'm a quite a glass half full guy, and I'm the eternal optimist, and always kind of just trying to always there's always a way to kind of look at it. My songs are about that, about the perspective being looking at the positive side, or looking at the there's always the other side of the coin, and it's just
did you hear that?
I did that. I saw it too.
Beautiful. Always looking at the other side of the coin, and then the birds.
Exactly, yeah. And more difficult to kind of like you just have to go within a bit more and just be stronger with everything, and thankfully, I have a beautiful life, and I have beautiful people around me, and lots of, personally, so I'm at a really great spot in my life, like from just having understanding, when you understand who you are and you implement things to support that, and not feeling guilty about stuff, or not feeling like you should be doing something else, and just really being present, just 100% present, and being in that state, 95% of the time, as where I am now, and it's nice. It's a really nice place to be. So there is a kind of an understanding of like, yeah, we still live in an affluent society. I've still got food in the fridge. I'm still got a roof over my head. I can still make music. I still connect with nature, and there's a lot of simplicity, a lot of beauty in the simple things in life. So I've always been connected with that, and thankfully, I still have that. Haven't lost that connection yet.
Thank you for saying that. There is beauty in the simplicity of life. That's a beautiful note. I look forward to have you on the show to talk about this new solo album. What's the name? What's the name of it?
Oh, well, the album's actually called Food and Shelter, but the first single we're going out with is a song called Malibu, and we're going up to Ellie Beach again. That might change. I mean, things have been paid for flights and paid for video directors and everything to put it into place to make it work. But we're spending 3 or 4 days in Ellie Beach, shooting it there at this particular spot called there's a resort there called Northerlies, but they have a little section of it that's like a little lagoon, and it's isolated. So we've done it. We're doing a gig for them, and in compensation, we're getting the place to use. So I found a really good new video director that I'm using, and we've set up a really good team. And yeah, the tune is it's about Malibu being, it was the golden child of the 60s surf culture, in the States, and was always and it's a metaphor really for when a relationship or when a time was beautiful, and there was the simplicity and everything, and then with technology and being influenced and moral, social media and things, just kind of like information overkill and everything, that eventually that there was layers put in front of it, and you lost the essence of what that was. And like a relationship, that there's times when a relationship was just gold, and so the chorus really sings about, the last line is, I wish we could just revive those days in Malibu, so it's all about, observations and really, and the end of it kind of says, you don't believe the hype, don't believe everything, like stay strong, stay, and the simplicity is important, So I'm looking forward to the film clip. We've got this whole storyboard happening on a little deserted island, and we've even been given a yacht to use, and we're doing it on Whitsunday. So yeah, so looking forward to that.
Is this?
It costs money to do, but hopefully it comes back with profile and gigs and everything. Yeah.
You're such a creative soul. I mean, in every breath, and I look forward to do a full chat with you and share more of your essence with everyone, and super excited to share a solo show with you. So thank you for all that you do, and may you continue to create no matter what life presents us in the next moment. Yeah.
That's the essence. And when I was talking to my granddaughter this morning in New York, they're stuck in a little flat there in Brooklyn. My daughter and granddaughter and their partner, and she was struggling, and my advice to her, when she has a very creative soul, was just that, get into creativity, to work through it, like you might get bored and everything, but just keep going, just keep because the creative mind is, we are born of the creative spirit, and that essence of creation, it's us. I mean, if there's ever, if I had to associate myself with any kind of philosophy or innovation religion, it'd be like, creation, and that the love of us, of our personal creation, the fact that we're on this planet, and it's an amazing, it's a trip. It's an amazing trip. And creation is a big part of that, and enhancing the creative spirit of the mind keeps the mind active, keeps the spirits up, and creativity is anywhere. You can, it's all around us.
Yeah. Thank you.
Bless.
Thanks for being on the OneSpaceLove show, Nicky Bomba.
OneSpace, you know.
I mean, we are loving the song that you created with Renstone for the OneSpaceLove show. It is on all the shows, Radio Byron, Bondi Beach Radio, and the podcast and YouTube. So thank you so much.
Yeah. Great. If we're doing a gig in your area, we should do a version of it, because it's actually quite a good groove. I like it. This is Nicky Bomba, and you're listening to the One Space, your space, my place, your space, love show, the OneSpaceLove show. Tune in deeper. Boom. One space. It's your place to get in phase. One space. One space. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Welcome, Mama Kin, to the OneSpaceLove show, also known as Danielle. And at the moment, you're working on the project Mama Kin and Spendor. So thanks for taking the time to talk about this important event that just has, come so suddenly to everyone, and just to tune into how you're feeling. Thank you so much for joining me.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me along.
So I wanted to ask if you can share, how did it affect you personally as an artist, and then how are you feeling for the industry as a whole?
Well, I'd actually only ever played Bluesfest once before, and I've experienced it more vicariously through my husband, John Butler, who's played it very frequently. So actually it was just so exciting to be playing it. There was such a lot of build-up and such a lot of, just so much excitement to be on the bill this year. And our current project sees us working with local choirs. So when we got booked for the festival, which was last year, we started speaking with a local choir. And, at the time, things were getting cancelled all the time. So we were like, let's just hold off. Don't start your rehearsals till, February or something. So just so they're not for, just in case more information comes. And so they put together an amazing choir, and in February they started rehearsing. It was still pretty nerve-wracking. John was on tour at the time because with the Somersault gigs, and they were literally hopscotching through COVID outbreaks here, there and everywhere, and at the risk of things being cancelled. And it seemed like a miracle every time a show actually happened. So we were still going, oh my God, it's so exciting, but maybe it's not, could it still not happen? Is it really going to happen? Is it actually really going to happen? It seems like a wild, crazy miracle. And as it drew closer, it just felt like, it's cool. It's going to happen. And what that means for artists flying in nationally, I'll just speak for us. It's a lot of logistics at play with family, and, the reality of that juggle and what that means, and then other shows that you might sort of pin onto that trip. Logistics, preparation, all that sort of stuff. So when the news came that the outbreak in Queensland had happened, the first decision John and I had to make was, were we both willing to go into isolation at the same time, quarantine or isolate at the same time? Because WA has been very, very quick to throw borders up. And they did put a border up with Queensland straight away. And then when the news about Byron, so we immediately changed all our flights to not be coming in and out of the Gold Coast, because even though that's a green zone on the East Coast, WA doesn't recognise it like that, which has been a really tricky thing. There's that inconsistency of how states have allowed movement. So we straight away we were on the phone for hours on the Sunday changing our flights so that we were coming into Ballina instead. And then as the news about Byron sort of came, we were like, okay, are we committing to 2 weeks of isolation and what are we going to do with our kids in that time in the middle of school holidays? And so we were slowly putting that plan together, and also just being like, wow, how come sports people can travel? What happens with them, and what's going on with, like, why can't there be an artist bubble that we can just kind of still be able to do these kind of performances and operate a certain way, maybe do like a 72-hour ISO on the way back in and be tested the whole time we're over there, or only be allowed to go like from the gig to the hotel or something like that. We don't even need to go there as a tourist, like we don't need to go to any hospitality places, happy to only eat at home. Like, we actually just want to do the show. And then working out whether only one of us would do it, or like trying to like work out who was going to care for the kids. It was just like a whole other element to it, and also just feeling so much grief and worry for the Bluesfest crew, just knowing that they were all set up, hanging on this decision. And it was a really full on time. We were really going, it's not our decision to make, yet everything hangs in the balance of this decision. I kept on pushing our flights back. So I was supposed to be there on Tuesday to start rehearsals with the choir, and to start rehearsals with Kin Spendor, who was already on the ground there. I was like, cool guys, I'm just going to push back the flights just as far as we can. We'll have the rehearsal this time instead. And we were like we were just in a constant sort of grip of re-logisticating, knowing that there was going to be news soon, So when the news finally came in, it was just a bit like, it was a mix of sort of, okay, that whole situation has just now been lifted off, but then also just the fallout of just the grief of really clocking how much energy goes into it, and how long we've been waiting to kind of get that connection back, and what that connection means for artists and audiences, and also just then for me a real feeling of disposability sort of started setting in. And as the arts community, it's just like, wow, we really, the Australian government really sees us as a disposable aspect of our society. And I think that was the sort of sticky feeling that I was left with in the days afterwards. Because we're a super viable industry, we bring a lot of, if you want to just talk about the economy, if that's your kind of, that's your litmus test on whether something should be valued or not in society, we bring a lot of economy to the Australian economy. And so it's not that, but it's almost more attitudinal. And it's almost more that it's kind of seen as a secondary or disposal, if that's what it's starting to feel like. I know there's a lot of government initiatives, there's been a lot of funding pumped in, but also a lot of that funding has not been allocated in a way, and it certainly hasn't made its way to artists. It certainly has not been making its way directly to artists. Like, where is the government recompense to all of those artists' costs that just occurred, that will just potentially sit unrecognised? Organisations may be reimbursed. I mean, I hope all the food trucks, oh man, just the food wastage alone. I mean, I can't even imagine.
Bluesfest did just share the initiatives that the Byron community went into with the leftover food, and they all came together, and there's some great stories that are shared, but that's the community coming together.
They do? Tell me.
There was an empanada. That's a community spirit, isn't it?
Yeah. And that's what we need on a federal scale, right?
But that's what, exactly.
It's to treat all of us as actually a large community. When you go, okay, hey, something's happened. Where are all the points of fallout here? And let's address them. Let's actually collectively address them, or let's collectively get behind that. So for Dingo and I, it was going to be the first show in over a year because he lives in Melbourne and I live in WA. And the choir was sounding so amazing. So to connect with the choir again, let alone connect with the choir at a big festival, was feeling super exciting. And I'd been rehearsing here by myself, like, because I play drums with the Mama Kin Spendor gig.
Yeah.
So I've been like setting up in my little creative space with my drum kit, playing the tunes really loud and playing along with it, waiting to get back to playing with Dingo. So yeah.
It's a real energy build up. Sorry. It must have been a real energy build up and then just a real fall, climb the mountain and then.
And that's been ongoing. There's been so many of those over the past year now of like, okay, that festival's being pushed back. No, it's being pushed back again. This one's happening. No, that's being pushed back again. So it gets to the point where you kind of book a festival and you're like, oh yeah, let's see. And that's a really, that's not a good place to be operating from where it's like, it may or may not happen. It's like there needs to be some level of assurance or backing for the energy that goes into something where at least, okay, look, we're going to give it our best shot. But if it doesn't happen, the government's stepping in these ways. If the government's approving a festival and the festival is going to the lengths that Bluesfest went to be COVID compliant, and they were like, it was, it was like
one
world
case
first kind of stuff of how to deal with, off the back of one case. And look, I get it. There was also for us, we were good because WA had not put the border up with Byron, and we were like, it's going to take only 1 or 2 cases for WA to do that. And it was like we actually had this full flow chart of like different scenarios. Okay, scenario 1, festival goes ahead, blah 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 blah. We go over. There's no more cases, no ISO, and the festival happens. Okay, great. So we had all these different scenarios that we had to be prepared for. And so in the scenario that we were over there and then more cases started happening and then WA put the border up, so we were unprepared for ISO, we needed to be prepared for things that the government weren't willing to kind of step up to and give us assurances on when we were leaving. And I think that is the really hard thing where you're like, okay, the idea of as artists getting trapped in these red zones when they just can come up overnight. So in part, there was also relief because it was just like, I also knew that I was going to be on the ground in Byron watching the news constantly because it was about to change the course of not just the show, but what the next 2 to 3 weeks was going to look like.
Yeah. And
what that meant for our own work-life, family balance, so yeah, it's a of course a really tricky time, and also yes, there was one case, and it did feel like, is this just the beginning of all the cases that's about to come up? And then there was an argument of like, okay, well, what about just couldn't they just cancel the first day, or could we have stopped and watched a little bit longer? But yeah, I don't envy anyone in any of the positions that had to make those decisions or deliver them or receive them or be waiting for them. I mean, we were sort of on the outer skirts of what that impact zone was, and that already felt stressful enough. But as far as the people who were living in the middle of that impact zone, I really don't envy any of them. Yeah. And yeah, it felt volatile in every direction. Yeah, God, story to tell. Just looking forward to the reschedule. Really hoping that they're going to be able to make that happen. And I know that all the artists are going to be so happy to jump back on and support that happening in any way. But I hope the government is equally as willing to jump on board and support that happening in every way. And I hope that there's an equal amount of enthusiasm from state and federal bodies to support that happening as there are from these promoters, from the artists and from the audiences, because it's taken a great level of agility and belief in our community and our sector to even keep turning up in the face of how much risk and volatility that we seem to be having to turn up in the face of. And I just want that reflected by the gatekeepers and the government who are sort of being the traffic lights around that space.
Controlling
and get creative about how that could look. Surely it doesn't have to be as simple as there's 1 or 2 cases and that means ISO and that means a shutdown and that means it's just like, okay, well, hold on, how many, what are the stages here? So yeah, can't even imagine the fallout for that Bluesfest crew. They worked so hard to create a COVID compliant festival, state of the art, a reimagined space. I don't know if you saw the plans for the festival, but a completely reimagined space, which they had to bring a whole lot of creativity to and respond to a really volatile situation. And I just hope that the government is being as creative and responsive in regards to the arts community.
And with all that said, what is giving you, and if you want to speak on the behalf of John, what's giving you you guys hope to continue to because it sounds like you're very hopeful for this to go ahead and that energy to come again. Is that hard for you to find that hope?
For me, it's still at the centre of it is the opportunity of connection, and that is very much there with our internal teams and our supporters, our audience base, these promoters who are working so hard to reopen that space. There's some really great. I don't know if you follow Cat Empire's manager, Corinne Wilkie. Her business is called Maven and Muse, and she's been just putting up some great tiles on Instagram regarding, just really simple initiatives to get suggesting some ways the government can actually really get the support back to artists. So that gives me hope. It gives me hope that I have so many people in our community who are just so fiercely dedicated to that connection happening between artists and supporters and communities and other artists, and there's a lot of love in our community, so that gives me great hope. And in the meantime, it's just a little bit like Groundhog Day and putting one foot in front of the other as far as being in damage control in a lot of ways. I mean, John's had a great run of shows this year through the Somersault crew, through John Zachariah and his amazing organisation. And every single one of those felt like a win, a huge win. And the camaraderie between the presenters, promoters and the artists and the audience, like just the sheer joy at having that space back was, incredible. So it is ticking. But what's happened is, people who were just startup promoters before this happened, I mean, I don't even know how, a lot of people are having to really reimagine the spaces they operate in. Whereas, which is what's really different to the sports community. The sports community we still operate in this space, and that is completely supported, valued, and still public. It's still available for public view, right? Subsidised heavily. Whereas musicians have had to go, well, where do we operate now? And then we've had to come up with ways to try and connect with our audiences off our own channels.
Yes.
So there's no national, we're not on Channel 9, we're not on Channel 7, we're not even on the ABC. We are, I mean, there's some great shows, the sounds was awesome that came up, but as far as the vast majority of musicians, we're having to find our own portals through our fans and reimagine what that space of connection looks like. So I think it's just a really powerful time of reimagining and fostering each other, but also I think the next chapter is going to be how do we re-pick up the crew of emerging artists, self-managed artists, emerging managers and emerging promoters who would have completely had the wind taken out of their sails and would have had no buffer there, very little sort of audience base built up already, who are at the beginning of what would have been, a 5-year journey of kind of getting to the thing, the momentum they would have lost is devastating.
Yeah.
And I think we're going to see that in the years to come, where there's this kind of gap in that area of like, where's that level of artist right now? It's like, well,
yeah,
they got a setback, and most of them fell off the perch because they literally couldn't.
Or started gardening
in a market where there was no gig economy. They couldn't come up, So yeah,
thank you.
I reckon.
Thank you so much. So good chatting with you and sharing.
You're welcome. Thanks.
So many important points for this. And it is a family, the Australian music industry, and it was a chance to give us hope all coming together for Bluesfest, because they had implemented so carefully over the last year to 2 years this plan and had it proved, so it was a chance. I think it gave everyone hope to come together. So I hope that the date is reset and that we get to everyone gets to come together again.
A thread in the fabric, a really important thread in the fabric of society, and what it brings to the culture and the sense of identity of a country and of a place, relationship. And even more so when the whole lineup was Australian. It was such an opportunity for deep solidarity, for deep celebration of who we are as a nation and how we've overcome this time and how we've worked together and how we've kind of sucked it up and all that kind of stuff, and how we've kind of followed the lead of the information coming through. Such an opportunity to celebrate that, and so having that stripped away just felt like, that was too great an opportunity to do that too. So yeah,
thank you so much, Danielle.
I try to resist the deep.
Thank you, Julz from Hussy Hicks, being on the OneSpaceLove show and creating space on Easter Sunday to chat to me about something that's very important to the creative industry and all artists out there. So thank you so much for showing up today.
No probs.
Yeah, thank you. I just actually was sent the latest posts from Bluesfest, and at the end they say, we are in discussion with government and their initial response is a positive one. We are hopeful to announce a rescue package soon to everyone involved in the festival. Did you see that post?
I did actually, yeah. Well, if hopefully that'll be the upside of this absolute stuff up, will be that the government might finally start throwing a bit of weight behind backing the industry. I mean, they've got things in place where they have funds to secure film projects, and Peter Noble and a lot of the team and people around the world have been talking about putting together these similar funds for the music industry, because you just can't run things on that scale and have them be able to be pulled at a whim at the last moment. Like the fact that Bluesfest, that they're some of the best minds in our industry for festival organisation, and they spent a year putting together a COVID plan, and one community transmission was enough to shut it down. It's like, why make them do a COVID plan? Like, what is it for if not small amounts of cases? If there's no COVID, then you don't need a COVID plan. And if one COVID case shuts you down, then why have them spend, I don't know how much money, but I know they did a lot of plans, and I know that they went back and forth with the government to have their COVID safety plan approved. Why bother if it can be all pulled at the last moment? It's just infuriating.
It is, isn't it? I mean, I've been in tears about it because it doesn't make sense, life at the moment. A lot of things are out of balance, and there's a lot of diversity in communities, and it can make you feel really overwhelmed by, what is the truth? Yeah.
Yeah, well, we don't know, but I know that we worked out pretty quickly, and I've spoken with other musicians, that social media is not a happy place to be. The last few days, I remember on Wednesday you had, you got people with football jersey avatars saying, the festival must be cancelled. You're like, well, football wasn't. They managed to not have any mass outbreaks when we've had the football and the cricket and the tennis during COVID. We've had, the Northern Beaches cluster was going on when we still had the cricket.
Yes.
And we didn't have a huge outbreak. So if we're managing to have these other events without huge outbreaks, it would have been really nice since Bluesfest had gone to all that trouble to put a COVID safety plan in place for them to have a chance to test it. Yeah, interesting times.
It is interesting times. I wanted to bring to one of your posts on social media where you both shared that music is what keeps us going. Let's bring it back to like where we find this hope in this and the silver lining. So, I'll leave it there because music keeps us going. Is that what helps you get through these times? And
music is what, we're musicians. Music is the thing that we've focused our energies through our life on. It's what we get out of bed for in the morning. It's what we've spent our entire working careers getting good at and honing our skills in. Music is, it's not some little whimsical thing, and it's not just sounds, it's our whole life. And when you're a band, we've spent the last sort of 6 months gearing up to make sure that when we stepped on the stages at Bluesfest that we sounded like a band who had their stuff together. We've had so many cancellations, just we seem to be on the bad side of the border bubble timings, but you still do that. People don't also realize things like, we're based in this area and we've played one show in the last 5 months in the Byron area, one show in probably since Tinton Bar in August. So we've done 2 shows since August in the area, because you don't want to, if you're playing a big festival and they book your band, you try and show them respect of not oversaturating an area. So
completely. Thank you for mentioning that. So, because that is a big part of it. Thank you for mentioning that. That is a big part for promoters.
Yeah. People don't know all the things that go into cancelling a festival. We certainly we'll probably play a few more shows in the local area over the next month, so it's some advantage.
And I was lucky enough to also capture that you were going to have, I hope that I'm correct, but your dad was going to join you on the stage for this 2021. Greg.
My dad is a huge blues fan, and he introduced us to blues music, and he's actually joined us at all the festivals we've played over the years. And my 2 little brothers were going to be playing in the band before us at Crossroads on Saturday. So yes, we were in we had a dark few hours here yesterday, as I sort of thought about Electric Lemonade jumping up at Crossroads from 1 till 2, and then we were going to be back up after that. So there was actually going to be 4 of us Parkers on the stage within 2 hours.
And also an opportunity for the industry to gather, wasn't it? That was what was really feeling exciting with all my friends that I know in the industry, just that gathering, even with the crew of Bluesfest, everyone coming together. Yeah.
The festival family, we, until last year, as you know, there's a musical community, and you see the same people, you see the same road crew, you see the same stage crew, you see other bands, and they're a family, and we don't get together at normal, we don't get together at Christmas, and we don't just generally hang out, but there's people that you only see at festivals that we're really, really deeply looking forward to seeing this weekend. And just
especially after last year was cancelled, and then this lineup was very much had to be the Australian lineup, which was really exciting to watch all the acts coming together. And I know you've been part of it for a very long time, but all the other acts coming together. So it was going to be a very, very Australian music festival family get together, and there was going to be a lot of love shared. Yeah.
There still is, we've been talking to, lots of the other musicians, and it's actually, it's funny, you sort of take some solace in how upset everyone is, because unless you are part of the industry, you don't realize how it is to have something like this cancelled. It was, it was a model for us to move forward in these times. It was set up, if Bluesfest spends a year making a COVID safety plan, then they're going to have dotted their I's and crossed their T's. And had they have been allowed to go ahead, then we might have had a model that made, that gave some confidence and hope back into other festivals. I know Narooma cancelled the same day because I guess they're like, well, if Bluesfest can't pull it off, we won't risk it. And yeah, so it's a huge blow. We're all feeling very very down and disregarded and overlooked as a industry again. When we always, people don't know what people who pull off festivals can do, and I would have loved to have seen Bluesfest given the chance to show how they can run an event in these trying times, because I think they would have annihilated it, and I think it would have been even possibly safer than the Easter show. Not that I'm against the Easter show, but I'm not even against the football. Every time I see a full stadium of people watching the football and there's not a case, I think, yay, hopefully that'll be an example that we can follow in our industry. But alas, it doesn't seem to work that way.
But I think it's important that it's mentioned. I mean, I'm not against the Easter show or the sports industry, but I think it's really important that we mention that, because it's the creative sector that's really being affected. And I know, I personally, just understanding all the precautions they spent so much time putting in place. I know Rusty Thorpe personally, and I know that if we can't go ahead with one case, what hope does it give us for the I just love how you're sharing. Thank you so much for saying that, because
it's our truth, isn't it? It's our life, and what we got to lose. I mean, we're not going to not.
Yeah.
It's us, We celebrated the end of JobKeeper with a case which closed the Western Australian border to Queensland, which, even though we could have avoided Queensland, I read the fine print said, or you couldn't have knowingly been in contact with anyone from Queensland. So I'm not going to lie on a border declaration. So we've had to blow out our Perth shows. We're blowing out this show. It's we didn't, but so we've gone from having April being a wonderful month of music and hope to a really pretty depressing outlook, and working out where to store all the merch that we had ordered for the month of touring and Bluesfest, without it getting, damaged by the
mold,
soppy, moist conditions on the north coast.
Yeah, I've been in the fashion industry. Yep. That was my first industry, and I definitely understand. I've been even feeling for all the store holders, because all the food that would have been
with all that food.
Yeah, food, and merchandise, food, all the roadies, the backstage crew, and just even talking to Valentina Brave, the choir that was put together and the time that they rehearsed, and
it's just mental. And the amount of, and even just the punters, there's like people who have driven and have 20 hours into a drive, they've packed up their families, they haven't got the time off work if it's rescheduled, they had the time off now. Especially because one day later, like by the time Thursday came around, there was a massive press conference, because we're such a visible part of the industry. People are up in arms because we're visible with the arts, we're visible but not powerful, it seems. And the day of the cancellation, you've got the premier up there, and there's a big old press conference, and then it's just like tumbleweeds the next few days when they realise there's no COVID case. And Bluesfest just drops away from consciousness, and the blues and jazz, all of that just gets forgotten. They don't mention, looks like we made a call a bit early and that was a bit silly.
Apologies.
And then the next day it's all Queensland is open for business. Byron Bay is open for business. Don't cancel your trip. And it's just like, oh great, cool. Everyone's cool again, except
that's what got me just watching it unfold, and then seeing, but we're still open for business, so please continue your holiday plans. I was just like taken by that, and it just feels very orchestrated. And well, and I just feel, and of course I want Byron to be open for business. We know people who have businesses here, and we know how much they rely on Easter trade. We're from the area. We know how much this is a big boost to the economy every year. I don't know the exact figure, but it's like $100 million or something ridiculous.
that it gets injected every Bluesfest / Easter to the area. And if, you know, we drove into Byron last night, and I've been hearing reports that it's chockers, but it's not. It's not that without a lot of people have gone home, and this will be the quietest Easter that I don't know if we were in lockdown last Easter, but this, you know, I don't know how a lot of these shops will be able to cope with if they lose too many more of these Easters. And when I say shops, restaurants, shops, bars, accommodation places, you know, but the food stalls at the festival, I really feel for them, because, you know, we got to fight the mold off the T-shirts, but they've got to work out what to do with hundreds of kilos of meat, which doesn't preserve. So, yeah. Harsh. And, you know, the staff, the people who had planned to work and don't have work now, you know, and everyone's panicking because there's no JobKeeper now. That all stopped. So, I know, yeah. But what about, anyway, we could keep going on forever, but it's just it was a real punch in the guts to not be given a chance as an industry to show that we had losing my words. Not be given a chance to show that we had the know-how and the knowledge to pull off a festival in COVID times. When that was the what was laid out. They were given guidelines. They were given, a chance to present a COVID safety plan. They presented it until they got one approved, and then it wasn't given a chance to go ahead. And that to me is just so disheartening. Why change? Why set a standard and then have that standard not be good enough?
I'm totally with you. I saw that you released the track The Edge about overcoming ups and downs of this crazy life. And I've listened to it actually in the last 10 minutes before we've just had this last minute interview on replay. It literally brought me to tears. I'm not just saying that. So I will be sharing that on this episode. Was this written sorry?
Yeah, it was written pre-COVID, and it was, wasn't meant to be a bit like the whole album. We've had
because is that from Gather Up the People?
Yes.
Oh, I love that track. Is sorry to speak over you. That track is beautiful. I mean, just the words in it about reaching to the light. Tell me about that album, because I'm going to share some tracks off that.
Well, yeah, it was. I think a few years ago, when the 18 months leading up to COVID, there was a lot of division.
Yeah.
Gather Up the People was about us finding the common ground between people who sit in different parts and different ideologies, and realizing that the greatest statement from that track that sort of goes through the album is the things we share are greater than the things that keep us divided. We all want the same things. And The Edge, that's one of my favorite tracks. And it's so funny, I'd sort of even forgotten we were releasing it. But not that you pay publicists, you do all these things. But we were just so gutted by not having a festival. I got to the next day and I was like, we haven't even shared it. I was like, what's the point? But yeah, I love that song, and we recorded that. The Gather Up the People album was really a good example of our whole band playing together. We because Trace and Ali and Lisa and myself, we spent a good lot of time in the studio because we had the time and had the space, and we worked up all those songs together. And The Edge was a funny little song in that I kept searching for something more until we ended up recording. We recorded the basic track in Currumbin. We did some overdubs here in our studio in Lismore. And then we took the track to New York and recorded some chains there, which was fun. We asked our friend, his daughter, what sort of music do you like? She's like, anything that has chains in it. I got these chains for Christmas. I'm like, let's record the chains. It's going to be great. So we ended up creating the track out of the chains and Lisa's fishing box full of leftover building materials. And then we went to London, and our friend Dana sang some BVs on it in the outro, and then the actual acoustic outro on the track was recorded in France in a little pigeonnier down in the Provence area with our friend Raph, and the fiddle overdubs were done in our little apartment in Burleigh with Mick Albeck, who's a very well respected fiddle player in the country scene. So The Edge is a track that yeah, it definitely has highs and lows. The highs, recording it and playing it live.
Mm.
The lows, timing its release on a cancelled festival. That's anyway. We will get it back up again. That's the outro, or will we?
I hope that you continue to find hope through your passion for music. And I know that this is particularly a sensitive weekend that we're chatting. And I thank you for taking time out to chat to me. I really do honor that. Thank you.
Yeah, well, it's not very nice weather, so we couldn't go for a walk, and so you got to do something to get yourself out of bed on these.
I think it's okay to sit in that vibration of feeling sad and disappointment. It's okay to allow yourself to feel that, because I think we have to allow ourselves to have those days to feel that.
Yeah, getting a combination of motivating yourself to, get up and do stuff, but also allowing yourself to, to honor the fact that you feel like shit. Like, I feel like shit. I feel sick, and I'm not. If there was a festival on right now, I would have probably walked 40 kilometers already over the weekend. But just knowing how many people are affected, knowing how many people have placed hope in this weekend, I feel sick. So today we're just going to wallow. I think this has been good. It's been good to talk, connect with people. It has been talking to other members of the music community that at least makes you feel like you're not crazy, or you're not losing it. That the collective disappointment is real, and I think everyone's allowed to be pretty frustrated and angry for at least the weekend.
Yeah, I felt the guidance to skip the show that I had and to do this, and I wanted to make sure the intention was right, and because it is quite a vulnerable time to reach out to people, and I think it comes back to, gather up the people. To me, it was to gather up the people that wanted to have that space to be able to share from their heart, how they're really, really feeling by this. So we can bring awareness to the greater community, to have more of an understanding of this creative sector, to not just think of it as a cancellation of a few shows. Like, this is impacting so many people. It's not just a cancellation of a show. They don't always understand the behind the scenes and the preparation and all that goes on. And I do understand that. So I just wanted to, bring that to the forefront. Yeah. Yeah,
you do. And that's it. We're very visible, the musicians. Everyone's reaching out to us to see if we're okay, which is beautiful. But, what about all the people who have been there for 2 weeks setting up stages, and, there's a whole industry that no one sees. The people who go and work at festivals that no one even knows what they do. I've spent my whole life at festivals, and there's still sectors of the set up and pack down and behind the scenes stuff that you're like, I always see you. What do you do? It's a big old organism, the music festival.
Yeah.
Hopefully one that will survive this COVID outbreak.
I hope so. Thank you so much for being on the OneSpaceLove show.
Oh, it's nice chatting. It's good to talk to people who seem to understand the severity of the loss of hope. Let's not lose hope. But let's hope that let's hope the government realises that something needs to be done to help safeguard this industry. Money gets handed out left, right, and centre in tax cuts and insurances and other places, and we bring in a lot of money as an industry, and that's been one thing during COVID. I think the industry as a whole has started to maybe get a few more of our checks and balances and figures and representation in order, because we've sort of been a bit lacking in that in town.
I am hopeful that could be a positive outcome from this whole experience. That could be the silver lining, that there are some big changes made with the government.
Yeah, no, that would be great. They've done it with the film industry and it's working. You can't cross the road down here without running into someone from Hollywood in a 10 hours in the Northern Rivers, because they're assuring the film industry go ahead, and it would be great if we could have a little bit of assurance and insurance for people trying to put on events, so that if they do pull the pin, you're not, I think Peter was in the paper saying it's like a $10 million loss. Like who has $10 million to just get rid of?
Have you been in contact with any of the organisers personally?
I've been chatting with Rusty also.
Yeah, me too. Yeah.
I haven't chatted with Peter. I might flick him a message soon, but I just can't. My heart just breaks for them. I feel sick even thinking about how they must be feeling. We've done work together a lot of the last year to try and make sure we had a good show for this weekend, but they've spent the whole year making sure this weekend was a show. Like we have other gigs that may not get cancelled, but that is their show. That's what they work for all year. It's what they pour their hearts and souls into. It's where they excel. It's where they get their pride. And they did a great job. They had everything in place. They had a plan approved after many, many plans. Like I was speaking to them months ago, and they still weren't sure how many stages or how they would make it work or what. So it was all so. They massaged that festival and made sure that they adhered to what the government requested.
Yeah.
For what? It's just for one case to shut it down.
And it's an outdoor event. I mean, it's an outdoor event. You could have all been wearing masks. I mean, not the artists on the stage, but the guests. I mean, my mind just wanders of all the options that.
I think maybe we should hold it at Bunnings. That always seems to have a good 1,000 people there at any time. So we might have to set up a stage in the car park.
With their dogs. If you come to Sydney, we're allowed to have dogs in Bunnings now. Did you know that?
That's cool. That's cool. I might get a dog now that I'm not travelling.
Oh, we got to laugh. We have to laugh.
You got to laugh. You got to cry. You've got to laugh. You got to feel sick. You got to cry again. You got to laugh again. You got to hopefully write some more music and perform again. You got to bother to take the gigs and book them, and you got to book. You got to not feel bad when you ask the band if they're free that day and it gets cancelled again. You've got to survive when your drummer gets up at 4 a.m. and drives to Albury for a gig to get cancelled by the weather, and then drives up to the Northern Rivers. Ali pulled into the drive as we got the cancellation call. Like, we've just, as she literally pulled in our drive from down the way. Decent drive to turn around and not have a gig at the end, and you just got to keep booking them, keep hoping. We've been lucky. We've managed to play a few shows, and we have managed to keep the band feeling like a band, which has been hard, and it hasn't been an accident. Like the first weekend we got back together, we were booked to play like Tintinbar Hall, which normally is a great gig that we do duo. That's small and you jam a lot of people in there, but in COVID times, the capacity was 32, and we're like, we still want to do it. Let's just do it. Let's play a gig. And then we played up on the Gold Coast the next night. And we're rehearsing with the band all week, and we're like, we'll do it with the band. We don't care. We're not making any money out of it anyway. Let's make marginally less. And then that was when we had the border shut. Okay. And so the Queensland border shut to anyone who'd been in Greater Sydney. If you weren't there. So our drummer had to leave, go across and miss the Tintinbar gig so she could do the Gold Coast gig, and she had to stay at our house because she didn't go. If she'd played the gig, by the time she left, it was too late to get to be in Queensland. It's just been so many funny little things.
Yeah, you don't realise, do you, all the little bits that the pieces
our
of the
travel banks.
No, say it like the pieces of the puzzles. You don't realise all the little pieces of the puzzle that bring it all together, so you can get on that stage with that 30, which is not even a big,
yeah. And that's the thing. It's like the gig part you do for free. I actually think I'd do it for if you asked me to book and plan a tour and the gig wasn't involved, I'd charge way more. It's like it's whatever all that was minus the joy fee of playing, and it gets you back to the normal wage that we make. It's but when you do all of the peripheries around it and don't get to play, it's just like, great. I booked these flights for the 4th time. And somehow I get less back every time I get a refund, and they cost more when I book them. So it's like we've got to cancel all our flights and hire cars and accommodation for our Perth trip.
Perth, yeah.
So that'll be fun. And our poor musician friend and agent over there, Phoebe, who's been booked, she's booked that 2 or 3 times now, booking less things and cancelling them.
I'm not laughing, it's just I'm thinking that it's a comedy, really, isn't it?
It's a comedy, yeah. That's actually what Ali, our drummer, said when she drove through the driveway as it got cancelled. She's like, yep, it's a cosmic joke. Here we are, here, now. Right, yep, it's off now, cool. Not 10 minutes ago, not 10 minutes after. What a cosmic joke.
I like that. It does feel like a cosmic joke on that note that Bluesfest was cancelled.
Hi, I'm Julz Parker from Hussy Hicks, and you're listening to the OneSpaceLove show.
World is turning on its head, and I'm all shook up, like I'm falling to the bottom, and I try to look up, but it's spinning no matter where I turn. We're searching for the light, and it's all around, but it slips right through my hands. What is the answer?
My space, your space. Your space, my space. Our space. OneSpaceLove. OneSpaceLove. OneSpaceLove.